Now, if you could go back in time and give your 17-year-old self some advice, what would it be? From all appearances, Oli Hille didn't need much guidance to achieve quite a lot before the age of 50. He's a commodities and currency trader. He works for himself about 25 hours a week, takes 9 weeks holiday a year, and I think there are enough zeros in his pay packet. But life wasn't always as idyllic as it sounds now. Like so many people, Oli was working all hours of the day and night, getting by on 6 hours sleep, feeling so stressed his doctor warned him of dire consequences if he didn't make some changes. So he did. And over the past 6 years, he's been collecting the best bits of wisdom that he has discovered himself and from other successful people. And he's written an ebook called Creating the Perfect Lifestyle, which is now the #1 lifestyle ebook on Amazon.com. Oli Hille is on the line with us now from Christchurch. Hello, Oli.
Hello, Jim. How are you doing?
Nice to talk with you.
And you?
So what was your low... You will talk about the book and how you've done it, etc., but what was your low point when you said something has got to change?
You know, I think it's, as you mentioned in the introduction, probably the day I went to see the doctor and said, look, I'm just stressed, I'm exhausted. I remember going to sleep at night, and I mean, this is crazy. I don't have these kind of thoughts normally, but I'd go to sleep at night and I'd think to myself, I might not even wake up in the morning, I'm so stressed. I mean, you know, my heart was racing about what hadn't done any exercise. And I think that's the moment when I thought, I've just got to make a change.
You also got a letter from your mother and you were too stressed to read it. And people,
my mum's listening to this.
Oh, but people know that feeling, don't they? The correspondence, not necessarily from their mother, comes in on the desk and you think, no, I can't deal with that.
Well, I mean, how crazy is it? You know, I was living in Wellington. My mum was and still is living in Christchurch. She writes me a newsy letter, and I'm too stressed and not even don't have time or the mind space to read a handwritten letter by my mother. I mean, when you get to that stage, you know things are not right.
So you concluded, okay, I've got to have a better lifestyle than this. How did you set about it?
Well, a lifestyle change does take time, but I think the key thing is just making that realization. So, you know, the doctor was the first thing that got my mind thinking. But then it was probably a few months later, I literally woke up one morning. It was like a revelation. And the revelation was life is not about working your butt off for somebody else, trying to quote-unquote get ahead, but life is about deciding the kind of life you want to live, setting goals, creating and designing the kind of life you always wanted to live. I mean, it sounds so simple, but I think so often we're reactive and we do things that maybe our school system and our parents and our peers expected us to do, and it's not actually what we would truly decide if we sat down with a blank piece of paper and said, what do I actually want out of life?
And listeners will be interested in your conclusions. They'll also be interested, Oli, in how you did it. And maybe before we talk about the content, we can talk about what you did to get this up to the top of the Amazon bestseller lists, how you became an author. Because it's ebooks, isn't it? There's no hard copy. Would you have written the book if you had to go through a traditional publisher the traditional way?
Well, I started the book 9 years ago, so the answer has to be yes, because when I started writing the book, ebooks didn't exist. So absolutely I would have written it, because it's something that I wanted to write for myself, something that I wanted to write for my kids, something that I believed, believed in strong enough that it needed to be out there. So would I have written it anyway? The answer is absolutely yes.
Right. But maybe you wouldn't have achieved the success you've achieved so quickly. And
Definitely not. You know, absolutely and possibly not, because how can I, a self-published author sitting in a home office in Sumner, New Zealand, compete with a multi-million-dollar publishing house that has PR people paid to get books out there, has a staff of people, has, you know, bookstores around the world? How is it possible for me to compete? Well, it wasn't possible until the internet and Amazon suddenly, within a matter of a few short years, suddenly leveled the playing field.
Is there much upfront cost with it?
Almost none. Yep. I think, well, interestingly, I've just started putting short books up on Amazon since, you know, I had no books on Amazon at all, no books anywhere a month ago. Now I have 2 books on Amazon and 1 going up tomorrow. These are shorter books. The cover I'm doing myself now, but the cover for my book I had professionally done. It cost $97. The ebook conversion is now done by Amazon, probably under $200, including, well, maybe if it's a long book, maybe a bit more to get it professionally edited. But let's say under $300 for the whole lot, and you're up on Amazon.
Okay. And it must be, I think you've said this yourself, it must be like watching a pop star.
Well, that's an interesting point, because Amazon recalculate their ratings every single hour. And, you know, there are 58,000 ebooks on Amazon and, interestingly, 17 million paperbacks. But they will tell you every single hour how your ranking is going. So it is. It's like being a pop star. Of course, they had to wait once a week for the pop charts to update. But every hour, which is why, incidentally, people like me, and me included, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to see how their ranking is. It is. It's like being a rock star going, well, where's my ranking? Have I gone up? Have I gone down? How many am I selling? It's awesome.
And then you found yourself right at the top of the charts.
Well, I did, yeah, and I didn't have that expectation, which is surprising, because I am a person who has sort of high expectations, but I never thought I'd make it to number 1. I was hoping to get in the top 10, because I think you can probably legitimately call yourself a bestseller when you're in the top 10. But, you know, I think the 99-cent strategy just worked brilliantly. I think getting some media helped. I think the fact that I'm so big on social media, and for example, I've got over 20,000 Twitter followers. So, you know, when everything all came together and people started to buy en masse, when that happens because of the way Amazon, you know, as I said, they rank every hour, suddenly, if you sell a lot of books quickly, you can shoot up the rankings, and that's exactly what happened.
Okay. Let's talk about the book, because you imagine it as the advice you would have given yourself at age 17. Creating the Perfect Lifestyle, Oli Hille is with us. Who's buying it?
That is a very interesting point, because, you know, when I wrote this, I thought my target audience and the people who would buy it would be 17 to 25-year-olds. But that's proved not to be the case. And thinking back, I think I can understand that. I mean, I wasn't interested in this kind of book when I was 17. I was invincible and bulletproof, and nobody over the age of 30 could tell me anything. The funny thing is, the biggest buyers of my book are between 40 and 55. And having said that, there are people in that age group buying it for their teenage children.
Oh, okay, they're not necessarily buying it for themselves.
Well, actually, mostly they're buying it for themselves. So if you go to Google Analytics and see who goes to my website, lifestylebook.com, the vast bulk of the people who go there are between 40 and 55. But I've had so much feedback from people who said, I like the look of your book, I've read it, and I've decided, in fact, one of the top Amazon reviewers said that he's forcing his 3 teenage children to read it.
No, they do say the middle-aged are special consumers of self-help, don't they? Because they're determined to keep on growing and improving their lives. You know,
that's right, yeah, I think that must be true.
All right. Let's talk about the content of it then. You have your 6 pillars of success and lifestyle. I might ask you, if I may, before we, comment on it, to basically lay out the tenets of the book for us.
Okay. So let's talk about the 6 pillars. So some of the key points, I mean, this is a big book. It's 266 pages and 65 chapters, but I'll try and summarize it for you. Firstly, I want to say that creating the perfect lifestyle is a journey and not a destination. You know, you've never made it. We all have to continually grow. And one of the key pillars that I mentioned, is gravitating to what you love doing. And I think so often we don't do that. You remember when you're at school, you and everybody in sort of our age range can probably tell you what was their favourite subject at school because they enjoyed it so much. But it seems that we lose that when we leave school and find a job. We sort of fall into the career path and we start doing things that we never actually loved doing. So one of the key pillars is gravitating to what you love doing.
Joseph Campbell made a phrase famous called follow your bliss, which I suppose is a variation on what you're saying. Not everybody feels that they can do it or make money from doing it, of course.
Well, that's true. That's an issue, but I think that's a bit of a red herring because I think most people could and would make a living, perhaps even, perhaps would make less of a living but be far more happy. But also, the people who are most successful are usually people who are following their dreams, doing what they love doing, and you get energy and enthusiasm. And if you happen to work 18 hours a day, it doesn't feel like work because you love what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. It's nice work if you can get that. So in order to achieve that, you say define the life you want to live, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's no point, rolling out of bed and going, well, wouldn't it be nice if I won lotto, or wouldn't it be nice if things were different? You've actually got to sit down with a blank piece of paper and go, well, what kind of life do I want to live? What do I want to be doing with my time? How do I want to spend my energy? Where am I going to get the time to do all the things that I love doing? And, actually defining the kind of life that you want, visualize it in your mind, be clear about what you want, and then you can start making steps towards getting there.
Okay. And it's crucial in your view, and we've heard this said before, but it's advice most of us probably haven't taken. It's crucial to write it all down.
It is so powerful writing it down. There is something about the human brain that when you write something down, there's two steps. The first is writing it down, and the second is committing it to yourself and committing it to a third person or somebody you respect, a mentor, etc. But for some reason, and numerous empirical studies have shown this, when you write it down, there's an extra level of power that comes with it. I don't know why it is, but that's just the way human beings are wired.
There are people who'll think, listen, I don't want to write down a whole lot of lotto, big Wednesday type goals like the big house in Coatesville or the yacht down at the West Haven Marina. I don't want my life to be like that. That's not necessarily what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, that's a good point as well, because, as I say in the book, your dream or your vision might be saving the country's waterways. It might be earning enough passive income so that you can go and do development work in the third world. Everybody's dream of what they want their life to be like is different, and it's quite likely not the big Wednesday lotto goals. But whatever it is that would get you up in the morning at 5:30 rearing to hit the day running, whatever that is, that's what you need to be writing down and say, well, that's the kind of job, that's the kind of life I want to live.
The next step also is focus, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I challenge anybody listening to this to think about anybody who's been wildly successful who hasn't been focused. If you read autobiographies and biographies of successful people, they are so good at putting everything else off their agenda, everything else off their mind, and focusing in on what they really want to achieve. Now, obviously, hand in hand with that comes the next one, which is balance. You can't be so focused that you forget about whatever else is going on. But, there's always another novel to read. There's always another TV program to watch. There's always another coffee morning to go to. And you can end up at 75 in your rocking chair going, I missed so many opportunities.
All right. So focus would seem to be very sensible. The next one, though, is trickier because I think people snort when they hear this word now because of their busy lifestyles. Balance. Yeah,
that's right. Once again, I think it comes down to grabbing that blank piece of paper and going, what do I actually want out of life? And if what you want out of life is to make sure that you have time for your kids and time for your marriage and time for exercise and to do this and to do that, then you've got to sit down and go, well, my current lifestyle, my current career, what I'm doing with my spare time doesn't allow me to do those things, so I need to make a lifestyle change. I need to make changes. And, if you sit down, it's amazing if you sit down with a piece of paper and decide what you want. It's amazing how quickly you can get focused on exactly the extraneous things that you can take out, the things that are wasting your time, and you can start freeing the time and the money and all those other things up.
There's no magic wand, though, is there? I met a guy down in the car park this morning en passant, and I said, I don't know how the conversation got around to it, but I said, how many hours a week are you working? And he said, 60. And I thought, this is a successful person, but I thought there'd be a lot of people in that category, whether they're earning big money or not much money, who are slaving away and carving out that kind of balance in their lives to be with their family and to do what they've always wanted is tough. Yeah, it is tough, and that's where I was at, 12 years ago, and I was in that exact same space. And I think there's just something to be said for sitting down and going, is this really the life that I want to live? Am I energized about getting up every morning? Am I excited about life? And if not, it is time to make a lifestyle change, and you might have to make some tough decisions. All right. Creating the Perfect Lifestyle, author Oli Hille is with us. So we've done 5 of them, and the next one, or the last one, is relationships. Yeah, well, the reason I put relationships in is because, as human beings, relationships are just the key to living.
relationships with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends, relationships with your business partners. It's so critical. And once again, if you look at the people who are most successful at getting things done, nobody is an island. Nobody can get things done without having a great team around them, without having love and support and friendships. And, concentrating on your relationships is key. And it's a real mistake to focus on other things in your life like career or getting fit or whatever else it is. If you forget about relationships, you're really losing your humanity.
Yeah, and I'm sure every person who's ever written meaningfully in this area would agree with you that relationships are the most important thing. So they are the six. They're the six, aren't they? Relationships and focus and write the goals down and find out what you love. So that seems sensible enough. The trick is putting them into practice. I mean, during the lower periods of my life, I've tried self-help, and some of it probably stuck. I mean, almost certainly tips and tricks stick. But one thing I noticed, and also I once talked to a few people for television current affairs shows about this, was that people lapse. I mean, we all lapse. Try something for a few weeks, you feel better.
New Year's resolutions, perfect example.
Exactly.
They mostly last till sort of 15th of January.
And you repeat the daily mantras and then you don't. I mean, the human condition undermines self-help a bit, doesn't it?
I think you're right. Yeah, I do. A couple of things I'd say is, first, if you read a self-help book and you get 2 or 3 key things out of it that enable you to make a change, then that's been worth your time and energy. And the other thing is that another point that I make in my book, and I'm not good with maths on the fly, but if you are going on a 100-kilometre journey and you are out by 1 degree on a compass point, you are going to be kilometres and kilometres away from your destination when you've gone 100 kilometres. And the point is that even if you make a tiny change in your life that sticks, it can take you to a great destination that you would have never got to if you hadn't made that change.
All right, so, okay. It gets you some of the distance, and then you've got to keep doing it. You see, discipline seems to be the underlying principle here, doesn't it? It's actually sticking to it, and that's where people come unstuck, I presume.
Well, yeah, I think to a certain extent that's true, but it's not that difficult, like I say, with the 1 degree. Making a tiny 1 degree change, like if, let's say, health and nutrition, if you just decided to make sure you had 3 lots of fresh fruit and vegetables every day, if that's the one thing you did and did nothing else, that alone would probably add years to your life and energy to your life. And that's just one tiny thing. And, you can make a small change in 1 or 2 areas of your life, and that will have a massive difference on your life. And it doesn't take that much discipline to make 1 or 2 small changes.
Tell us about your own life, if you would. So you sat down and Mum's letter arrived, and we know that story. So what difference has all this made in your life? Can you take us from Oli then to Oli now? Okay,
well, at the time, I was working as a chartered accountant in a big firm. I didn't enjoy it. I felt like a square peg in a round hole. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I was paying the bills. I was trying to build a property portfolio. I was doing all these things to quote-unquote get ahead. But the thing is, I didn't spring out of bed in the morning. I didn't love it. I felt stressed. I felt anxious. As we've talked about, didn't have time for friends, family, exercise, my spiritual life. Didn't have time for all these things. Didn't even have time to read Mum's letter. Well, after I gradually made the changes and decided that the first thing I would do is start doing things that I love doing, and I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I started my own business, and I started it with the specific focus of allowing it to revolve around my lifestyle and the lifestyle that worked for me, which is why I chose internet-based businesses, because obviously I can be sitting at a cafe with my cell phone and be at work, and if I want to work late at night or early in the morning, whatever suits me, or if I want to go on holiday and take a laptop. So once I made the decision that I was going to make my career and the way that I earned money revolve around the things that I loved and the lifestyle I wanted, everything else started to fall into place.
It wasn't entirely a smooth path for you. That's what I found interesting. You had your bad times.
Well, yes, absolutely. And, one of the points I make in my book is if anybody tells you there are never bad times, then run, because part of the human condition and things that are outside our control sometimes are very difficult times. And also in my book, as you've alluded to, I made some errors and made mistakes which were my own fault, which put me into a difficult position. And having the tools to be able to take a step back and look at where I'm at and refocus and change the way I'm doing things, enabled me to bring myself back. And also, there are some spiritual aspects in there as well, which is a key part of why I have a great life now. Yes, absolutely, there are difficult times in life. It's part of the human condition. Some are self-made, some are totally outside of your control. And, part of being a human being is being able to deal with those difficult times and take the silver linings, take the lessons, leave those difficult times behind and keep going. And there's that old saying, if you're going through hell, don't stop, keep walking, keep moving.
Those goals, though, that you wrote down, whatever they were back then, because you would have been practicing what you preach, and when the business disasters occurred and those goals looked a bit drab then, what did you do? Did you write a new set of goals, or did you just think, hang on, this is a setback on the way to realising all this?
Both, actually. Yep, both. I mean, my mindset was this is a setback, and I knew setbacks were going to happen, and I know it's just part of life. But, an interesting point you make, probably without realising it, is that a goals list is not something that is carved into stone. In fact, you should review your goals monthly at the very least, because if you've achieved goals or a goal looks more difficult and you're less likely to achieve it, you need to change it. So a goals list is something that continually evolves. You need to continually look at and continually reevaluate. And if you're going through a difficult time, one of the chapters, Bad Times, when I started at January, beginning of the year, I wanted to make $1 million that year, and ended up in a very difficult situation by the end of the year, and everything that I'd planned had gone terribly wrong. Well, come November, is my goal to make $1 million? No, my goal is just to survive. My goal is to get to the end of the year and keep paying the mortgage. So suddenly my goals change. If I'd come to middle of November and I'm like, oh gosh, my goals from January said I had to make $1 million this year. Well, I'm down 200,000. How am I going to do this? That's just the wrong goal. The right goal then is, I need to pull myself out of this hole. I need to go forward, and I need to survive and get the bills paid, etc.
You're honest about it. A lot of self-help gurus never admit that anything's,
Yeah, well, I do try and be honest.
We don't have time to go through the whole book. As you alluded to, it's quite long. You are quite a one for lists, and that's interesting. And I must read your chapter on lists, because I do try and make them occasionally, and like a lot of people, I don't necessarily stick to what the list consists of.
Right.
But it's all focus and discipline with you and how to achieve it. Well done on getting to the top of the lifestyle Amazon bestsellers. That's an achievement in itself. And good luck with the book, Oli.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate that.
It's a pleasure. So Oli Hille, Creating the Perfect Lifestyle, his online book. You can buy it. It's an e-book. You can buy it online. It doesn't exist in the bookstores.